Every day, more and more people are becoming self-taught guitarists. And why not? In-person lessons can be expensive, and plus the internet has so much free information. And the truth is, any technique can be self-taught on guitar, even the hardest ones. Whether it's alternate picking, fingerstyle, pre-bends, sweep picking, it's all doable. But what are the most common struggles that self-guitarists face? Let's find out. Here are the hardest skills to teach yourself on guitar. One of the hardest skills for self-taught guitarists is rhythm and timing, keeping time, feeling the groove. Most self-taught guitarists focus on riffs, on chords and solos and specific techniques, but rhythm is really the glue that holds it all together. It's the most common lacking skill that self-taught guitarists discover about themselves when they start playing with other people. You might know how to play the song, you might know how to do the solos, you might be really good at all these amazing techniques and look super impressive in a vacuum, but once the song starts, you're playing with a band, you start to fall behind, or you start playing too quickly and you're having trouble keeping time. It's a very common issue. But if you never played with people before, maybe you're not sure if you know how to keep time. Maybe you're not sure if your rhythm skills are good. Well, what you could do is play along to a song that you know. So if you know a song like Shook 'em All Night Long by AC/DC, play that song and try to play along to it and see if you're keeping up with it. If you're too slow or too fast, then you need to work on your rhythm. So how do you improve your rhythm? How do you become better at timing? Well, I'm sure you heard of a metronome before. So you can either buy a metronome or you could download a free app that has a metronome on your phone. You could play that, and every time you're practicing, beginner stuff like chord switches or scales, then you could do that to a metronome. So you're practicing keeping a steady beat. And eventually, when you do it enough times, you could do it in your head. You could hear it in your head, or you could tap your foot and keep making your foot tapping help you keep time. There's a few different ways, right? You could sing and play. Sometimes when you're singing along to the beat, then it helps you keep time because you're singing. It's easier to keep track of where the song is while you're singing than it is while you're playing. Because sometimes when you're just playing without vocals, you're kind of rushing through it and you might go too fast. That's what I found at least. Or sometimes you're focusing so much on the technique that you're going too slow because you're trying to focus on being accurate. So the singing really helps as well. If you find the metronome boring, you could play along to a drum track. If the metronome's too annoying for you, you could do a drum track. Just find a basic one and practice to that as well. Or if you have somebody who knows how to play drums, that's even better. And another way to identify if your timing and your rhythm is good is instead of just playing along to a song, you could also record yourself, whether it's on video or a voice recorder. It's a little strange how it works, but when you're playing, you sometimes can't tell if you're keeping rhythm or timing. But when you record yourself and you're not playing, you're just listening, you realize, oh, I'm going too fast or too slow, or not keeping it consistent. Sometimes too fast, sometimes too slow. So that's another way you could kind of test yourself as well. And I also just cannot stress enough how important it is to play with other people, because when you don't play in front of other people and you start doing it, you'll notice that you get nervous, or your breathing is irregular, or you're sweating, your hands get sweaty, you might drop the pick, or you never, just little things like that that you don't realize you have to practice when you're practicing on your own, working on different techniques and songs. When you're playing with different people, there's different factors that come in. So self-taught guitarist is great, but you need to practice and play in front of other people and with other people as well. It will teach you things that you can't just learn from a YouTube video. An important tip to remember when you're playing with people, especially if you're planning to do it for the first time, is to be present. Just really feel the groove and play off people around you. Be in the moment, because if you're focusing too much on getting the technique right, you'll start messing up. You have to learn to play what sounds good, not just what sounds correct. A wrong note on time often sounds better than the right note at the wrong time. Another very common thing that self-taught guitarists seem to struggle with is how to practice. It's very important to have structure when you practice. A common mistake that guitarists do is that every time you get ready to play the guitar, you just look up a new thing to learn whenever you want to practice. That's not just about learning a new thing every time you pick up the guitar. It's about building on what you already know, and also making sure you spend some time on revision and practicing and sharpening things that you learned in the past. And when I say structured, I mean mindless noodling. Every time you pick up the guitar, you're just playing something that you know how to play. You need to have some sort of structure to learn how to practice, what to work on next, have a goal. That's what's very important. There's all kinds of guitar lessons online that give you the structure. You don't have to follow along with them, but you can at least learn the structure to figure out the order of when to learn things in. And also will tell you what kind of exercises to work on, so you know if you're working on too advanced of a technique or too advanced of an exercise or not. It's very important to know that. You have to know how to break down your practice routine, and most importantly, what songs complement what you're working on. So you're not just practicing and learning a technique, you're also applying that technique to a song that has that technique in it. So you're learning songs alongside of it as well. So when I say don't just learn something new every time you pick up the guitar, but actually build on what you already know, I'll give you an example. So instead of just learning or memorizing a scale, then moving on to another scale and learning another scale, you want to build on it. So say you learn one scale like the C major scale, you learn it, then you memorize it so that you don't have to look at a tab or something. You memorize the scale. Then you want to work on getting it steady, having a steady and consistent beat. Then you want to work on muting the other notes so that when you're going up and down the scale, you're also not hearing the other notes you've hit ring out. Then you want to work on speeding it up. Then you want to learn to alternate pick it, and then learn how to improvise to that scale to a backing track. Then learn a song that utilizes that scale. It's like that's how you build on that before you move on to just memorizing 10 different scales. You want to build on everything you know and move on that way. You could even throw in some theory in there, like why am I learning a scale? What is a scale? What are all these scales? Why do they sound good together? Why am I able to improvise to a backing track that's in the same key? Why does all that make sense? You could throw in theory while you're learning about different techniques, and that's what helps you build on your new skills rather than just learning a bunch of individual skills every time you pick up the guitar. And again, mindless noodling versus structured practice is just so important to have a structure to what you're practicing. It helps you stay motivated, it helps you get past the plateaus. It keeps you from getting bored because you can move past when you get bored of something that's tedious and work on something, then revision it and get back to it later. I'll give you an example of what focused practice could look like. So let's say today you're going to work for about 30 minutes or 45 minutes. What are you going to work on? Well, here's a beginner example. You could do 5 minutes on exercises with a metronome. You could do 5 minutes of chord practice and smooth transitions and chord accuracy. You could do 10 minutes on a scale, working on a scale with a metronome. You could pick a song that's related to what you're working on and work on trying to learning that song for 10 or 15 minutes. You could spend 5 or 10 minutes on some revision, things you've learned in the past, and just making sure you're keeping those skills sharp. Um, you can end on some noodling. So whatever is fun for you. So 5-10 minutes, you can just play whatever you want just to make it fun, because you have to spend some time to keep it fun. It's important to keep that in your structure practice. You always are progressing. You're breaking it down through exercises and technique, and also still learning songs, and also still learning some theory, and also spending some time on noodling. So that's the focus practice you need to work on, and you need to keep in mind, not just mindless noodling. So how to practice, very important. The third hardest thing that self-taught guitarists struggle with is identifying what you don't know, or you're not aware that you don't know. And that's a very important distinction. So what does that mean? Things you don't know, or things that you weren't aware that you don't know. That means you are doing something wrong and you're not aware of it. That's a very tough thing to correct when you are a self-taught guitarist, because when you have in-person lessons, when you're paying, you're getting direct feedback at the second you're doing something wrong. The second you put your hand in the wrong place, the guitar in the wrong place, or whatever the case may be, your teacher will be like, nope, stop, you're doing something wrong. Fix this, fix that, whatever. But when you're self-taught, you don't have anybody else in the room usually, unless you're playing with somebody else, telling you what you're doing wrong. So it's very important that you have really high attention to detail and self-awareness and critical thinking, asking why you're doing things, not just trying to copy what you see in a video, because that's how you are learning a lot as a self-taught guitarist, is through video. And certain people, YouTubers or teachers online, teach things differently, or they might rush and you might miss something, and you're not really sure you're missing something because there's no one there to tell you you're missing something. So That is a very big challenge for self-taught guitarists. I can make a whole video on this topic, and I probably will. The hardest parts of being a self-taught guitarist is not learning technique, because there's enough tutorials online that exist to find exactly what you're looking for. So anything you don't know, you can learn that way. But when you are learning something wrong, and or you didn't understand it correctly, or you're doing it your own way and you're not realizing you're doing something wrong, that is the biggest challenge. So how do you stop that, and how do you correct that? There's a few things you can do to become aware of what you're not aware of, right? So, first of all, you have to make sure you're self aware of what you're doing at all times. And when you're watching a video, to make sure you have as much attention to detail as possible, focusing on every little thing in the video that even that they're not talking about. So, if the guitarist that you're watching online is talking about how to play a song, pay attention to where their hands are, where their fingers are, which angle their wrist is curled, how they're holding the guitar, how they're hitting the pick, how their hands look like. The little details like that, you got to make sure that you are also looking like that, because they're not going to tell you every little detail. They're going to take for granted that you know the basics, or that you know how to do certain things. When you're learning a song or when you're learning a technique, you need to pick up the differences between yourself and the person you're watching online. But say you're not very self-aware, you don't care to have the attention to detail, that you still have some options. You could record yourself, right? So record yourself and see how you compare it to people that you watch on YouTube. Okay, why is my elbow up here when I'm playing? I don't, that person on YouTube doesn't have the elbow up there. Oh, my wrist kind of hurts. Why does it hurt? Ask the why. Why is my shoulder getting sore? That can't be common. Let's look into that and see what I'm doing wrong. You have to be aware of what you're doing and record yourself. If you're familiar with Reddit, you could also go on Reddit. There's a subreddit that's called Guitar Lessons, and on every Friday, there's a thing called Feedback Fridays, where you can record yourself doing a technique or a song, whatever you want it to be, however long you want it to be. You can block out your face. If you don't want people to see you, it doesn't matter. You post it on there. You say, "How am I doing?" You just make sure you show the guitar in your hands, and people will give you feedback based on what you're doing and what you're doing wrong. So that's another way to get some feedback that way, if you are a self-taught guitarist without a personal teacher. So be self-taught if you want to be, but don't be a loner. Play with others. Pay for the odd lesson here and there if you can. You don't need to get weekly lessons, but maybe once in a while you could get a lesson, a couple times a year, just to make sure that the things you are teaching yourself, you're not creating any bad habits. So you could do that as well. It's the most important thing, is that when you're playing live and you're playing with people, you get the instant feedback, you get personalized feedback, which is invaluable. And if you're watching this and you're a self-taught guitarist that hasn't been playing very long, like a year or two, you might be wondering, like, oh, I wonder what some of the things I am playing that is not correct. What am I doing wrong that I'm not aware that I'm doing wrong? Well, I'll tell you the most common ones. And funny enough, it's not individual techniques. Even really tough techniques are not taught self-taught very wrong. What is most common are the basics, like how to hold a guitar, how to hold a pick, keeping your wrist straight and not collapsed, tucking in your elbow, curling your fingers so you're playing on the fingertips. Your shoulder should be down and back, which prevents fatigue and long-term joint issues. How to mute things while you're playing, whether it's with your palm or with the tips of your fingers. Higher up the fretboard, you want to stick out your arm. You don't want to shrug. Your anchor pinky for the when you're playing fingerstyle, you're anchoring the guitar so that you are always keeping track of where your fingers are on the strings. Also, when you're plucking from the knuckles, not on the tips of your fingers, but from the knuckles. When you're up strumming, you're not strumming all six strings, you're strumming just two or three of the bottom strings. The dynamics, right? Like playing louder and playing softer. Usually people want to play a little softer during the verse and they want to ramp it up right before the chorus. And right at the chorus, they want to start playing louder. These are like little things that you don't really watch videos for. You just kind of gather when you play with people or when you watch other people. So it's the basics. All the things I mentioned there are by far the most common things that self-taught guitarists make mistakes or learn the wrong way without even realizing, because they never play with others, or they don't record themselves or listen to themselves. It's not individual techniques, so keep that in mind. And the last thing that self-taught guitarists struggle with is what to learn and from who, right? So I mentioned earlier about structured practice and how important it is to get the proper order, but where do you get the proper order from, and from who? Who are the best teachers online? Well, I have videos about that. I have two videos which I'll plug of my own right now, which is who are the best online teachers. That will tell you the best online teachers on the internet for beginners, intermediates, and advanced players. I also have the best music theory teachers on the internet. Again, beginners, intermediate, and advanced players. So no matter who you are watching this, it will tell you the most optimal way to learn online and who the best teachers are online, because at this day and age, there's hundreds of YouTubers out there who are teaching you guitar, and some of them are better than others. Some of them specialize in certain things and are better. One teacher better at teaching songs, another one's better at teaching music theory, another one's better at teaching solos, another one's better at finger style. You get the point, right? There's certain teachers that specialize and are better than others. So I broke that down for you. That's very important for you to learn as a self-taught guitarist, what to learn and who to learn it from. So I'll be making more videos like that going on in the future about who are the best of the best for each individual part of learning guitar. I am trying to help other people become good self-taught guitarists and learn as efficiently and optimally as possible. So hope you enjoyed the video for today, and I hope to see you again next time. My name is Dan from Beginners Helping Beginners. Have a good day.